George Lucas prequel films are generally remembered for their often unrealistic dialogue, athletic duels, and stunning visuals. But most tend to overlook the fact that they also exhibit some pretty savage and sometimes quite unnecessarily barbaric kills too, and a disturbing amount of sudden decapitations for a PG and 12 rated set of movies. So from a callous end for some loyal soldiers, to a brave racer who just wanted to impress his dear family, and inspired by the Star Trek versions of this very list that you should definitely go and check out too. I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Star Wars, and here are the 10 most messed up deaths in Star Wars Prequel Trilogy. Number 10, they're doing their jobs. By the time Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, reached its end, the once Jedi pals known as the clones had obviously turned their back on the one-time generals, but that still didn't change the fact that the deaths of many of these poor, brainwashed clones post-Order 66 were all kinds of messed up. That's something we'll cover in another entry though. But even before Palpatine gave that galaxy-changing order, these clones were often killed off in the most brutal of ways. However, perhaps more cruel than their actual deaths was the reaction to them. Just look at the way Obi-Wan Kenobi reacted to the sound of a couple of his loyal troops being shot down during the opening space battle above Coruscant in Episode 3. Anakin Skywalker attempts to help out his clone mates in his starfighter as they're attacked by droids in space, only for Obi-Wan Cold Nobi to stop him by saying they're doing their job so we can do ours. They weren't just fixing a light bulb, Obi-Wan. These were living beings fighting for the Galactic Republic. But in a quite horribly detached moment amidst the madness, Kenobi just treated the clones as merely objects designed to help them achieve their goal. So uncivilized. While we're talking about clones, who is your favorite clone of all time? You let me know in the comments section down below. Number 9, 2 innocent pilots get blown to smithereens during a negotiation. From one opening scene moment of messed up violence to another. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, kicks off with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi being taken to a Trade Federation ship, with the two then attempting to negotiate with Viceroy Newt Gunray. However, things very quickly went sideways when Gunray and co. were told to kill the Jedi by Darth Sidious. Before they tried to blast away the Force-sensitive warriors though, the innocent pilots who brought them to the enemy were first blown to smithereens in the ship's hangar. It's a pair of deaths that are rarely remembered when looking back on this thrilling opening sequence, but the more you think about them, the more harrowing the whole thing becomes. Antidar Williams and Maui Madakor likely thought they were just heading out on a relatively safe mission that day, just transporting a pair of Jedi ambassadors to try and put an end to the Trade Federation blockade above Naboo. But before the Judicial Force members had any time to throw up their shields, both peacekeepers suddenly perished in the explosion caused by a turret, becoming the first of many casualties in this prequel trilogy. Murdered while just dropping off some space wizards at work. What a horribly cruel way to go. Number 8, Kit Fisto and the other Jedi Masters' rapid deaths. Now, while it was safe to assume that not many Jedi were making it out of the prequels alive, I mean, we knew they were all but extinct by the time the original trilogy began, the way that many of the Keepers of the Peace were suddenly culled in this galaxy far, far away was still quite a shock. There were a few quite horrendous murders thrown onto the big screen in the wake of Order 66 becoming a thing, of course, with Ki-Adi-Mundi's death after his troops infamously and quite swiftly turned on him mid-battle being perhaps the most memorable and disturbing of the lot. But moments before that order was even given, another group of masters had already been brutally slaughtered by the man who would tell the clones to kill their former leaders. In one of the most startling sequences of the entire trilogy, Palpatine quickly slices through 3 powerful Jedi Masters in Agen Kola, Saesee Tiin, and Kit Fisto, the latter being one of the more beloved background Jedi in all of Star Wars. That still didn't stop George Lucas from having Palp savagely tear through his torso with a lightsaber though, with this trio of effed up murders setting the stage for the equally ruthless ending of Mace Windu in that same office. All 3 of the pre-Windu kills are cold, efficient, and horrifyingly quick, establishing Palpatine as a swordsman capable of effortlessly chopping through master duelists like it was just another day at the creepy office. Yeah, the Windu death was pretty bad too. Number 7, Anakin Skywalker's Tusken attack after Shmi's death. Like master, like soon-to-be apprentice, eh? Not for the last time on this list, Anakin Skywalker found himself in the middle of a seriously messed up situation in the prequel trilogy, with this one going down in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. In the wake of discovering that his mother had been captured by Tusken raiders, a determined Chosen One searched for her on Tatooine. But when he found his mom within one of the Sand People's huts, it was too late. She'd been tortured and was on the verge of death already, uttering a few words to her baby boy before then passing away. In a fit of rage, the Jedi then decided to take revenge on the raiders, and not just the men, but the women and children. Now, sure, the Tuskens responsible for capturing poor Shmi likely deserve some form of punishment. Even then, murder probably shouldn't have been the first resort. But to cut through every single person in that clan, kids included, was all kinds of disturbing. In the space of just a few scenes, Lucas was able to show just how far Annie was willing to go to get back at those who'd wronged him, or stop those he felt needed to be, giving viewers their first real glimpses at the Vader lurking within. Number 6. Darth Vader executes the Separatists. Speaking of the Sith Lord Anakin Skywalker would eventually become, the Chosen One was back to swinging his lightsaber around and murdering a bunch of folks like they were animals one film later. Though many of the Separatists had very much been up to no good at various points in the prequels, that still didn't mean they deserved to be viciously murdered once Emperor Palpatine decided he had no more use for them. But that's precisely what happened in Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. After being sent to Mustafar by his new master, Darth Vader ultimately slashes his way through the likes of Newt Gunray and the rest of the Separatist gang. I mean, the appalling scene feels like something ripped right out of a slasher movie. Now, no one is saying that people like Gunray, who tried to have Padme Amidala assassinated multiple times, don't forget, should not have been punished. But without even being given a fair trial, all of the beings in this room were shockingly butchered on the orders of the man who'd been manipulating them the whole time. All this coming after Palpatine had promised his new apprentice would take care of them. Yeah, that's what he did. Again, there were no saints, but seeing them get brutally massacred like this was still pretty rough. Thanks for coming to see our messed up list today, my friends. I hope you're enjoying it. And if you want to see more of these What Culture Star Wars videos, then hit the subscribe button down below. And guess what? Yeah, I know you're gonna get more. It's awesome. Number 5. Count Dooku loses his head. Before the rest of the Separatists were chopped to pieces by Lord Vader, their leader also felt the hot end of his lightsaber earlier on in the film. One movie on from the traumatizing visual of Boba Fett watching his pop's head be, well, popped off, Count Dooku experienced a similarly unpleasant end early on in Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Anyone who has dug a little deeper into the former Jedi Master's backstory will know that he originally left the Order due to losing faith in the Jedi and the corrupted Republic. He then joined Sidious as the leader of the Separatists, doing everything his new master asked of him as the two looked to bring order to the galaxy, including killing Jedi Master Yaddle. That's what made his cold double lightsaber beheading in front of that same master so brutal to watch. The look on Dooku's face as Sidious orders Anakin to do it tells the story of a man who'd done all he was asked to remake the galaxy alongside his Sith master, only to then be shockingly betrayed moments after having his hands cut off. Talk about kicking a man when he's down. His head then alarmingly rolled, opening up a position next to Sidious' side in the process. Number 4. Padme Amidala loses the will to live. So many of the deaths here were included due to just how shockingly savage or unexpectedly horrific they were. That is not the case with this entry though. Instead, it's the fact that a medically healthy Padme Amidala died because of something as underwhelming as losing the will to live that makes her demise so messed up. Amidala deserved a way more epic end than simply giving up on life after seeing that her beloved Anakin Skywalker had turned to the dark side. This was a strong woman who'd been the Queen of Naboo, had fought against evil in the galaxy for years, and was about to bring 2 children into the world. So it was a bit tough to accept that even the admittedly heartbreaking revelation of Annie now being a Sith Lord would be enough to make her decide enough was enough. But rather than finding a more compelling way to write her out of the story before the original trilogy, like perhaps having Annie accidentally kill her with that force choke, I don't know, Lucas just decided to give fans one of the most disappointing and bizarre deaths in Star Wars history. Number 3. Rat Tyrell crashes and burns as his poor family watches on. Pod racing is a dangerous sport, my friends, so it's probably wise not to invite your wife, kids, and newborn baby to one, right? Well, Rat Tyrell unfortunately did not get that memo in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and likely traumatized his family for life. It's shown in the full version of the Boonta Eve Classic that the Alina racer was being watched by his family on Tatooine, meaning they all very much witnessed the little guy crash, burn, and die in the second lap of the race. Horrific stuff. Oh, but it gets worse. You actually see the Tyrell clan wandering behind Qui-Gon Jinn in the background after the race, evidently broken after watching poor rats smash into a stalactite. The galaxy would be changed somewhat in the wake of this extremely messed up situation too, with Rat's son Delland ultimately founding the Rat-Tyrell Foundation and getting pod racing banned on a lot of planets due to it being so damn perilous. At least rats didn't die for nothing, eh? Number 2, all of those younglings. If you hadn't realized already, Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith was not afraid to get a little bit dark. And that is certainly one way to describe the last entry focusing on Anakin Skywalker wickedly murdering a bunch of people on this list. With Order 66 in full swing, Lord Vader eventually enters a room within the Jedi Temple, only to find a group of innocent younglings hiding from the deadly assault happening outside. Not aware that the man in front of them had fully turned to the dark side, they asked him what they were going to do to escape the situation, but little did these defenseless kids know there was no escape. In without doubt one of the most unsettling shots in Star Wars history, Vader ignites his lightsaber and frightens the life out of the youngsters, with George Lucas cutting away from the action before the Chosen One began killing the next generation of Jedi. It's a moment that's still a tough watch almost 20 years later, even without seeing the actual, killing. The truly barbaric act cementing Skywalker's turn. That's not the only unspeakable moment of violence that occurs during this siege of the temple either. Lucas' own son, Jet, playing Padawan Zet Jukasa, also fails to survive this attack of the clones, being ferociously shot to death by the soldiers whilst trying to protect Bail Organa. If that doesn't show you just how messed up Order 66 was, well then maybe this final entry will. Number 1, Yoda does not think twice about cutting down clones. As promised, this list is going to end on an entry looking at the rather dreadful treatment of some poor clone troopers. Now sure, the Jedi had to do what they could to protect themselves following the activation of Order 66, but there were still some situations early on there in the Jedi Purge that were uncomfortably and perhaps excessively savage. You can understand trying to deflect blaster shots or using the Force to push these pals turned foes away. Master Yoda had other ideas though. After already feeling the death of many Jedi across the galaxy, the second he sensed that the brainwashed troops behind him on Kashyyyk were about to turn their weapons on the little green legend, Yoda did not think twice about flipping backwards and slicing both Commander Gree and Captain Jeck's heads clean off. Look, these clones were very much trying to murder him due to the inhibitor chip placed in their brains, so Yoda had every right to do what he could to keep that from happening. However, the fact his first thought was to jump up and decapitate 2 soldiers who had been so loyal to the Jedi for so long without batting an eyelid was just really disturbing. Attachment may have been forbidden for the Jedi, yes, I know, but this was still a pretty shocking and cold-blooded way of dealing with the unexpected turn of events.